Hi, it's Rob from the Bush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how I paint the tanks on the back of the Marines who carry a Plague Spewer. Okay, so the first colour we're going to use for this is Vallejo Black. And all we're going to do is going to use this to do a kind of circle on the side of that tank. And when you see the finished miniature, I've also painted two panels, once on the front, one on the back of this tank, and both ends too. But generally I will only paint one. I've just done that for a bit of an example so that when you see the full tank and the picture at the very end and the little rotation, you'll be able to see how it looks all round. But you want to be doing a nice flat kind of circle on this part of the tank, leaving a little outer edge of the armour colour, so that's kind of like the frame for it. And try and get that edge as smooth as you can. You're probably best rotating the miniature, as you can see here, doing all different directions, because it's easier to paint a curl, or a curve rather, from certain angles than it is to paint them from others. So if you find out which the best way is for you, you're probably best rotating it and just constantly painting it from that angle. So now I'm going to use some Citadel Moot green. I'm going to use this to put the first layer of colour onto the tank, and this is going to represent the colour of the plague kind of liquid sloshing about inside the tank. So you choose where you want that to start. Like, you can't have it so that, depending on the pose of the figure as well, you can look at it as how the water or the liquid is going to be sloshing around inside there. As he looks like he's doing quite a slow pace, I just wanted to do a kind of low crest, so it's not like it's sloshing up the sides or anything like that. It's just like a little bit as though it's kind of being gently sloshed as he's strolling along. So we're going to have this little central crest here, and you're going to paint that green all the way down to the bottom. Try not to leave a little edge of black on there, you don't really want to have that. So if you can get the green to go right the way up to the colour of the armour at the bottom, that'll make it look like it's showing all the way around the glass panel, or the clear panel I should say. I'll see later on how you can add a little effect to make it look like it is the glass. Will be doing a bit of reflection on there, and rather than having any kind of clearly defined edge between the green and the beige, or the green and the armour colour, whichever armour you're doing, you'll have those reflections kind of going around the, not quite the edges, and then you'll have a little bit of slightly darker green around the edges of those reflections, and that'll give you that edge so it distinguishes itself from the armour. So now we're going to mix a little bit of Vallejo White with the Moot green. Obviously any white will do it. This is just to lighten up the colour. I'm going to start doing a little highlight across the top of the crest. We're also going to be doing a few little different coloured bits inside as well. Now you can paint the liquid beneath this however you want. I tend to just do a lot of different lines in different directions and little curves and a few little circles with some of the lighter colours, as though there's little bubbles in there and that kind of thing. But you can do as much detail as you want on it really, as long as you get a few different shades of the green around it to make it look like the liquid inside is all funky in a few different shades of the same green. You'll notice as this goes along, the areas that I highlight always tend to be slightly different. So I'll do one part of it, then on the next layer I'll do a slightly different part of it, and it constantly changes shape and colours and deciding what looks best for it. Now using a bit more Vallejo White again, mixing this in with the previous mix. I'm going to start adding a few more highlights to the liquid inside and also on the crest of the liquid. So again, it doesn't matter too much really where you put these highlights. You always want to have highlights getting lighter and lighter towards the top of the liquid, as I say, just to represent that light reflecting off the top of it. But inside you can paint it generally how you want. When you look at that, what I'm doing there, it isn't too crisp and it isn't too smooth. There's a few little jagged edges in there, but we will smooth them out a little bit later. What I'm trying to do here is make it look like there's a few little different colours and light reflecting off different parts of the liquid, as though there's no set consistency and thickness and colour to it. I'm going to use a little bit of Citadel Biel-Tan green here. All I'm doing here is adding a few little darker spots to the green. Now you could really add this Biel-Tan green after you've put the initial layer of Moot green on if you wanted to, and then just build up the layers over the top of it. But I find it a little bit easier to add this a little bit later on, and you can sort of put that in places where you can see that you've maybe highlighted some areas and you want to either darken them down, or also you can darken down some of the Moot green areas that are still showing through between the highlights. So try and add a few little different bits with the Biel-Tan green. So now I'm going to use some pure Vallejo White. We're just going to add a few little reflections to it, which will give you that little bit of almost depth to it, I suppose. Make it look like the light is catching on the clear exterior panel, which is letting you look inside it. So we're just going to do a couple of lines and dots at the top. You can see it's looking pretty thick, but not to worry, because as always with everything you're freehanding, once you've finished using the colour, you can go back and go over what you've just made the little mistake on there. We're also going to be doing a little bit of this on top of the crest of that liquid too, and a few little bits within the liquid. And this is the start of what I was saying about earlier, where you're joining the green to the colour of the armour, and then you're using these reflections and a little bit of Biel-Tan green around the reflections, which will darken it up and give you that edge between the liquid and the armour colour. If you do happen to do them a bit too wide or in the wrong place or kind of splodge it on, that's not a problem. We can always go back and touch them up, so don't worry too much if you do that. You can just go back and add a little bit of the previous colours just to smooth them over or thin them out. That is something that we'll be doing with a little bit of Vallejo Black here. So I'm not too happy with the top right white line there, it's a bit too thick, and it's also not got a dot on it, which I wanted to do. So I'm just going to trim that down and make it a little bit thinner by slowly edging the black paint into it, and then separating a little end piece from it just to give you that little dot, and then you can do that for any of the other ones that you're not quite happy with. Just going to use a little bit of Biel-Tan green here. All we're doing here is going to go down the side of this reflection. In part it's to thin it down because it's quite wide, so you can use a little bit of this and that'll just blend it a little bit into the greens that are around it. And you can also use this to go down the outer side of the reflection, which will give you a green bit of liquid that separates the lighter shades of liquid from the armour colour. And this is what I was saying about before, to separate them. So they've got that distinction there, but without having a black line. What we're doing here is using a few little bits of the previous greens just to touch up a few little bits, maybe separate the lines and get you a little dot in the reflection, and to smooth over some of those areas where you've maybe got too much of a straight line or a sharp edge to anything. You can just use a little bit of the previous colours just to smooth them in and blend them together. Once finished, you end up with a tank that looks similar to that. Now, happy with it turned out, that's going to be for the tabletop, but if you want to spend more time on it, you can get that a lot smoother and a lot neater. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media, linked below. Thanks very much. If you like the channel and you enjoy the content and you'd like to support us, please head to our coffee page below where you can buy us a brew. Thanks very much.